In a somewhat recent series, we talked about some of the greatest tacticians of the Clone Wars, and how, in many cases, the beings we often see as heroes could be uncharacteristically cold on the battlefield. But no figure in the Star Wars universe represented this tendency more than the greatest hero of the new Sith Wars, the being known to history as Lord Hoth. Lord Hoth was a maverick Jedi, the leader of the Army of Light. His time was one of the darkest and most chaotic parts of galactic history, but Hoth's tactical skill and cold cunning brought this age of darkness to an end, heralding in 1,000 years of peace. In this video, we'll be telling the story of this remarkable man and explaining why Hoth was much colder than many fans realize.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Before we discuss Lord Hoth's life story, we need to set the scene a little. Hoth lived during the final years of the new Sith Wars, a period of chaotic off and on warfare between the Republic, the Jedi, and various new Sith factions that lasted for a full 1,000 years. The new Sith, established in 2000 BBY by the fallen Jedi Master Darth Ruusan, were an exceptionally schismatic and disorganized network of Sith cults and petty states. They were spread across the galaxy, all waging their own small wars against the Republic, the Jedi, and each other. These Sith were turbulent and generally lacked the ability to manage massive swaths of territory, but they still managed to bring the Republic closer to collapse than it had ever come before. During the new Sith Wars, the Republic suffered a death by 1,000 cuts, or 1,000 cults, to be more specific. Before the wars began, it was already suffering from prolonged gridlock and bureaucratic nightmares due to overextension, and the constant chaos of the new Sith Wars gradually whittled it down to a shadow of its former self. After the cataclysmic Battle of Mizra in 1466 BBY, the Republic all but ceased to exist across most of the Rim, and wide swaths of the galaxy started to fall into chaos, claimed by neither the Republic nor the Sith. It fell to the Jedi to pick up the pieces. The Jedi Council steadily took control of the hemorrhaging Republic, just barely managing to keep what was left of it intact, while many Jedi went out into the Rim and took charge of remote, vulnerable sectors in dire need of protection. Over the centuries, these became Jedi Lords, put in charge of local armies and given hereditary estates and titles by the sectors they protected. These Jedi Lords, together with their students, allies, and a scattering of knights errant, kept as much of the Rim as they could safe from pirates and Sith, while the Council and the other Jedi babysat what was left of the Republic. The Council and the Lords didn't get along too well. The Lords and their followers were fast and loose with Jedi doctrine, having families and running petty states out on the Rim, earning them the ire of the Council, while the Lords saw the Council as dogmatic and unwilling to do what needed to be done. Nonetheless, the two managed to work together most of the time, and as the Sith ran roughshod over the galaxy, the Jedi were the only thing preventing total civilizational collapse. With that said, not even the Jedi could stop the Republic's downward spiral, and by 1100 BBY, the Republic barely existed, having withdrawn to a few small pockets of territory in the core and along the major hyperspace lanes. The new Sith, fortunately, were too busy killing each other to fill this vacuum, but this left most of the galaxy in disorder. The HoloNet shut down beyond the borders of Republic space, leaving many sectors well and truly on their own. Thus began the Republic Dark Age, which lasted for 100 years. It was in this perilous time that a man named Rolan was born on the planet Karl, a remote outer Rim world. He was the child of a long and respected lineage of Jedi Lords that had guarded the Yushan sector for centuries, and like his ancestors, he trained to become a Jedi. After years of training, Rolan gathered his family's armies and waged war against Sith pirates marauding down the Corellian trade spine. He successfully drove the Sith from the trade spine in a showdown at the remote ice planet Hoth, allowing the Republic to gain a foothold in the region once more. Because of this early victory, Rolan was known to the galaxy as the Knight of Hoth, and eventually, just Hoth. After his victories on the Trade Spine, Hoth traveled to Coruscant, where he was made a Jedi Master and the Jedi Temple's Battle Master. The students in the temple lived in awe of him, and whispers of Hoth's deeds spread rapidly through the Jedi ranks. The Council did not approve. Though they respected Hoth, they still disapproved of the Jedi Lords, and they didn't want their students romanticizing Hoth and imagining themselves as the next saviors of the galaxy. Hoping to give their students a new model to emulate, the High Council chose Jedi Master Skir Khan as their own champion, sending him out to lead their campaigns against the Sith. This was a bad decision. Khan quickly defected to the Sith. To make matters worse, he unified and reinvigorated them, gathering all the warring Sith cults and petty states under the banner of the Brotherhood of Darkness. In their rush to undercut Hoth, the Jedi High Council made their enemies stronger than they had been since the start of the Dark Age. After this debacle, Hoth was done with the Council's nonsense. He left Coruscant with a large following of young Jedi Knights and reclaimed his title as Jedi Lord, marshalling his followers in the Ruusan sector. He gathered all the galaxy's Jedi Lords together, and they formed the Jedi Grand Council, not to be confused with the Jedi High Council. Hoth and the Lords on the Grand Council decided to pool all of their followers and resources to form an army of light to stand against the Brotherhood of Darkness. Thus began the last of the new Sith Wars, fittingly known as the War of Light and Darkness. Together with his fellow Jedi Lords, among them Keel Shani and the gloriously ridiculous Valentine Farfalla, Lord Hoth fought a 10-year war with Khan and the Brotherhood. The Army of Light was badly outnumbered and always low on supplies, but Hoth's tactical brilliance led to a string of early victories against the Sith, most notably on Malrev IV, Drome Moon's Kars, Hoth itself, and even Rune, the capital of the Brotherhood of Darkness. But the Sith soon recovered, and they struck back. Hard. They retook Korriban and began driving deep into Republic territory, fighting battles with the Jedi in the core worlds. In response, Hoth decided to undercut the Jedi Council and take direct command of the Republic military. What was left of the Republic government went along with his plan, appointing Hoth the Republic's new Supreme Commander. Hoth assimilated the Republic military into the Army of Light, gathering many Council-loyal Jedi in the core under his banner in the process. This enabled Hoth to slow the Sith's momentum, but the situation was still dire, and it would take more to stop the Brotherhood of Darkness. After the Army of Light and the Republic military merged, the war became a bloody slog. Vast armies and fleets loyal to the Jedi and the Sith tore into each other across the galaxy, with no end in sight. Both sides suffered massive casualty rates and were constantly running out of supplies. These pressures forced Hoth to make some pretty callous decisions. The constant lack of supplies forced the Jedi Lords to levy tributes on their territories, and the ever-diminishing numbers of Jedi led the Army of Light to begin conscripting any Force sensitives they came across the fight, including children. With that said, the Sith were doing the same thing, leaving the Jedi little to no choice in the matter, but it was still a particularly dark chapter of Jedi history. As the war with the Brotherhood entered its 10th year, it became apparent to Lord Hoth that not even these desperate measures were enough. At the rate things were going, the Army of Light and the Brotherhood of Darkness were going to fight until they destroyed each other, the Republic, and most of what remained of galactic civilization. A new strategy was needed, Hoth decided. On his orders, the Army of Light began to shift its attention away from the fleets and armies of the Brotherhood and towards the Sith themselves. Khan and his Sith Lords were the real threat, and without them, Hoth surmised, the Sith would fall apart. Hoping to lure the Dark Lords out, Hoth had the Army of Light take a stand on the Sith-held planet Ruusan. Ruusan was an unremarkable mid-rim world that had been a minor Republic staging ground before the Sith took it. The Republic had launched a feeble counterattack, but the Sith easily repelled it, and Ruusan had remained in their hands. Hoping to draw the Brotherhood into a final battle, Lord Hoth led the main force of the Army of Light to Ruusan and routed the Sith present there. The Brotherhood, presumably bewildered by this overkill attack, led an equally overkill counterattack and retook the planet in the 4th Battle of Ruusan. But Hoth attacked again, and again he recaptured Ruusan. After driving off another Brotherhood offensive in the 6th Battle of Ruusan, Hoth made it clear that the Army of Light was playing for keeps. Khan took the bait. As the Army of Light escalated its presence and stubbornly refused to let go of Ruusan, the Brotherhood of Darkness did the same. By the time of the 6th battle, almost the entirety of both armies were encamped on the planet. Ruusan itself was still insignificant. It was simply the backdrop for what both Jedi and Sith had decided would be their final showdown. As Hoth had hoped, Lord Khan summoned every last Sith Lord in the galaxy to Ruusan after the 6th battle, trusting his vassal armies to handle the war's other fronts. Hoth, similarly, called in every ally he could, hoping to crush the Sith once and for all. The fighting on Ruusan sapped both sides' beleaguered supply lines more than ever before. Supply problems got so bad that by the end of the 6th battle, the non-force sensitive soldiers on both sides had almost all run out of blaster ammo, forcing them to start using spears and bows in vast field battles against the enemy. To make matters worse for the Army of Light, many Jedi had refused the call to fight on Ruusan, believing that the war had become Hoth's personal crusade. Hoth's fellow Jedi Lord, Valentine Farfalla, ended up leaving Ruusan to try and win some of these Jedi over, promising to return with 300 Jedi Knights. In the meantime, Hoth was forced to resort to guerrilla tactics to preserve what strength he had, luring the Brotherhood into unfriendly terrain as the 7th Battle of Ruusan began. The Army of Light nearly lost the 7th battle, in which the Brotherhood, under the guidance of Darth Bane, began adopting more aggressive tactics. Hoth's close friend, Pernikar, and many other Jedi perished, but the tide turned when Farfalla returned, as promised, with 300 Jedi Knights. At first, Hoth was pissed at Farfalla for leaving right as the 7th battle dawned, blaming him for Pernikar's death, but the ghost of Pernikar convinced the two Jedi Lords to forgive each other and join forces. Together, they beat the Brotherhood decisively, slaughtering the Sith and forcing Khan to retreat to the hills with the Dark Lords who remained. Hoth and his forces pursued Khan to the mouth of a cave, where a captured Sith Lord told them that the others had gone mad, and that Khan was preparing a ritual that would kill them all in the cave. Hoth had Farfalla lead everyone, Jedi and captured Sith alike, as far from the caves as possible, while he and 100 Jedi descended to confront Lord Khan. The Sith, in desperation, had prepared a thought bomb, a terrible force weapon that when detonated would destroy all life within a certain range, imprisoning the souls of the slain in an obelisk of force energy. Hoth attempted to reason with Khan, but he was deep in the throes of insanity by that point, and with a clap of his hands, he detonated the thought bomb. Hoth and his fellow Jedi were all killed by the bomb, their souls trapped in torment for 1,000 years before they were eventually set free. But Khan and his Sith were killed as well, and with the detonation of the thought bomb, it was believed that the last of the Sith Lords were slain. The 7th Battle of Ruusan ended the new Sith Wars. For 1,000 years afterwards, the galaxy would have peace as the Republic and Jedi rebuilt, heralding in a last golden age. But Lord Hoth never got to see the victory he had worked so hard for. He died, even in his moment of triumph. His sacrifice, however, was honored by the Jedi and the people of the Republic for centuries afterwards. This video goes out to Sleepy Seabird, who probably did not think that we would take the joke they left in the comments of one of our tactical breakdowns and spin it into an entire video. But what do you think? Would you like to hear more tales from the new Sith Wars? Feel free to post your thoughts in the comment section below.